The first time my niece tried to warn me, she didn't whisper. She didn't cry. She didn't even look scared. She just grabbed my wrist at the family reunion, stared straight into my eyes and said quietly, "Please don't let him know I told you, but he's not who he says he is." And in that moment, with music playing, kids laughing, and the smell of barbecue in the air, I felt something cold slide down my spine, because I already knew exactly who she meant. And deep down, I think I had always known he was dangerous. Before we go any further, hi, I'm Chloe. If you're into stories about betrayal, quiet strength, and the kind of justice that takes patience to achieve, you're in the right place. Take a second to like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from tonight. I always love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let me tell you how one summer afternoon at a cheerful family reunion turned into the beginning of the most calculated revenge I have ever carried out. And how a quiet warning from a trembling teenager changed everything. The reunion was supposed to be normal. You know the kind. Plastic folding tables, loud aunties arguing about recipes, someone's uncle already a little drunk by noon, kids chasing each other with juice boxes. It was held at my parents' old property just outside town. A big grassy backyard, ancient oak trees casting long shadows, the smell of charcoal drifting through the heat. I had just finished helping my sister set up the dessert table when I noticed her daughter, Lily. She was 16, usually bubbly, always talking, always glued to her phone or laughing with cousins. But that day, she looked different. She kept scanning the crowd like she was being watched. Her shoulders were tense, her fingers twisted the hem of her sleeve over and over. And every few seconds, her eyes would dart toward one specific person. Her partner, Evan. He stood near the grill, smiling, charming everyone, laughing too loudly, offering to help my uncles with drinks. Everyone loved him. Except me. I didn't know why at first. I just had this quiet, crawling discomfort around him, like when you stand too close to the edge of something and your body senses danger before your brain does. He was polite. Too polite. His smile never quite reached his eyes. And he watched Lily constantly. Not lovingly. Possessively. Like someone guarding property. I had noticed it for months. The way he interrupted her when she spoke. The way he answered questions directed at her. The way she went quiet whenever he walked into the room. But every time I tried to bring it up, my sister brushed it off. "You're overthinking, Chloe," she'd say. "He's just protective." Protective. That word always makes me uneasy. Because protection should feel safe. Not suffocating. I was arranging cupcakes when Lily suddenly appeared beside me. Her face was pale. "Can we talk?" she whispered. Her voice wasn't shaky. It was controlled, which somehow made it worse. We walked toward the far end of the yard near the old shed, away from the noise. The grass was dry and crackling under our feet. I remembered the cicadas buzzing loudly in the trees. The air felt heavy, like a storm was about to break. She didn't waste time. She grabbed my wrist. Her fingers were ice cold. "Please don't act weird after I tell you this," she said, "and please don't tell Mom yet." My stomach dropped. "What is it?" She swallowed hard, then said quietly, "He checks my phone every night." I felt a jolt of anger. "What?" "He has my passwords. He says if I don't give them, it means I'm hiding something." My chest tightened. "That's not normal, Lily." Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. "That's not even the worst part." My heart started pounding. "What else?" She leaned closer, voice barely audible. "He records me when we argue, and threatens to send the videos to people if I leave him." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The world felt like it tilted sideways. The laughter from the party sounded distant, warped. "How long has this been happening?" I asked. "Almost a year." "A year. A year." And no one knew. Why didn't you tell anyone? She looked down. Because he said no one would believe me. He said he'd show everyone how crazy I get in fights. Her voice cracked for the first time. And he said if I ever told you specifically, he'd make sure you regretted it. That last sentence sent a chill straight through me. Why me? I asked quietly. She looked up. Because you're the only one he's afraid of. At that moment I felt something shift inside me. Not panic. Not fear. Something colder. Something focused. Because I had spent years working as a compliance auditor, my entire job was catching people who manipulated systems, hid evidence, controlled narratives. I knew predators when I saw them. And suddenly, every uncomfortable feeling I'd ever had around Evan clicked into place. This wasn't teenage drama. This wasn't a controlling boyfriend. This was calculated psychological abuse. And he was confident no one would ever challenge him. What do you want to do? I asked gently. Her voice was barely a whisper. I want out, but I'm scared. She looked toward the yard, where Evan was laughing loudly with my uncles. He watches everything. Even today he told me not to wander off. My jaw tightened. He won't hurt you today, I said firmly. But even as I said it, I wasn't completely sure. Because men like him don't explode publicly. They tighten their grip quietly. And punish in private. Listen to me, I said, kneeling so we were eye level. You are not alone anymore, do you understand? Her lips trembled. She nodded. Okay, I continued softly. For now, act normal, don't change anything, don't confront him, let me handle this. Her eyes widened slightly. You believe me? I didn't hesitate. Completely. That was the moment her composure broke. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. And she whispered, "Thank you." As we walked back toward the party, I saw Evan glance over. His eyes locked onto us instantly. He smiled. But it wasn't warm. It was sharp. Measuring. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. He knew she had told someone. He just didn't know who. Yet, when we reached the tables, he walked over casually, draping an arm around Lily's shoulders. Hey, he said lightly, but his eyes flicked toward me. What were you two talking about? Lily froze for half a second, then forced a smile. Just school stuff. His gaze lingered on her face. Searching. Testing. Then he looked at me. And for a brief second, that friendly mask dropped. I saw pure hostility. A silent message. Stay out of this. I smiled back politely. But inside, I had already made my decision. I wasn't going to stay out of it. Not this time. Because he had made one critical mistake. He thought he was the smartest person in the room. He thought no one could outmaneuver him. He thought he had total control. And as I watched him steer Lily away from me, his grip tightening subtly on her shoulder, I made a quiet promise to myself. I was going to dismantle his control piece by piece. Slowly. Carefully. So thoroughly. That when it was over, he wouldn't just lose Lily. He would lose everything. And the very first step of that plan started later that night, when I received a message from Lily that made my blood run cold. Because it contained a single sentence. He just asked me what I told you, and I think he recorded our conversation. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a minute. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, phone clutched in my hand, replaying Lily's message over and over in my mind. He just asked me what I told you, and I think he recorded our conversation. Recorded. The word made my stomach twist. Because recording someone without their knowledge isn't just controlling behavior, it's strategy, it's evidence gathering, it's preparation. It meant Evan wasn't just insecure. He was methodical, and methodical abusers are the most dangerous kind. They don't lash out blindly. They build traps. I typed back carefully. Me asterisk. Did you answer him? 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally. Lily asterisk. I told him we were talking about college applications. He didn't believe me. He kept asking what you said. He looked really angry. I closed my eyes. I could almost see it. That cold stare. That tight jaw. That silent pressure. Me asterisk. Listen carefully. Do not confront him. Do not accuse him. Act completely normal. There was a long pause before she replied. Lily asterisk. I'm scared he's going to punish me. That word. Punish. No teenager should ever use that word to describe their partner. My hands curled into fists. Me asterisk. You're safe tonight. Stay calm. We'll figure this out together. I hit send. But inside, I knew something had already shifted. The clock had started ticking. Because once abusers suspect they're losing control, they escalate. The next few weeks were a slow, suffocating nightmare. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Worse. Subtle. Calculated. Relentless. Lily stopped texting as often. When she did, her messages were short, careful, neutral. Everything's fine. Just busy. Can't talk right now. Every word felt monitored. Like someone was breathing over her shoulder. And then came the first clear sign things were getting worse. She called me one evening. She never called. Her voice was flat. He installed a location app on my phone, she said. My chest tightened. Without asking. He said couples should share everything. He said if I turn it off, it means I'm cheating. My nails dug into my palm. This wasn't teenage possessiveness. This was surveillance. How are you feeling? I asked quietly. There was a long silence. Then she whispered. Like I can't breathe. The hardest part wasn't the anger. It was the helplessness. Because every instinct in me screamed to confront him. To expose him. To drag him into the open. But I couldn't. Not yet. Because confronting him too soon would only do one thing. Drive his abuse deeper underground. And isolate Lily further. I had seen it before in my professional work. Abusers thrive in chaos. They lose power when everything is documented. Structured. Proven. So I did the hardest thing possible. I waited. And watched. But waiting didn't mean doing nothing. It meant planning. Quietly. Carefully. I began researching Evan. At first I expected nothing. He came from a good family, solid reputation, clean image. But the deeper I dug, the more cracks I found. It started with something small. An old online forum post. A username tied to his email. A thread from years ago about relationship loyalty tests. I felt my skin crawl as I read his comments. He described ways to secretly monitor partners. How to catch lies. How to train compliance. Train. He used that word repeatedly. Not communicate. Not build trust. Train. Like he was talking about an animal. Then I found something worse. A former girlfriend. Her social media had almost nothing left on it. No photos. No friends. Barely any posts. But buried deep in her history was a single comment from 3 years earlier. Just one sentence. I should have listened when people warned me about him. My hands trembled as I stared at the screen. There it was. Confirmation. He had done this before. Meanwhile, Lily's condition deteriorated. You could see it physically. She lost weight. Her shoulders curled inward. Her laughter disappeared completely. At family gatherings, she barely spoke. And Evan never left her side. Always watching. Always controlling the conversation. Always steering her answers. It was like watching someone slowly disappear while standing right in front of you. One night she called me again. But this time, she was crying. Not loud sobbing. Silent, broken crying. The kind that sounds like someone trying not to exist. He got mad tonight, she whispered. My heart slammed. What happened? I didn't reply to his text fast enough while I was studying. I felt a surge of cold fury. What did he do? Her voice shook. He locked me out of my own phone and said he'd only unlock it if I apologized properly. I stopped breathing for a second. That wasn't just control. That was psychological conditioning. What do you mean properly? I asked. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He made me record a video saying I was a bad girlfriend and that I'd do better. Something inside me snapped. Not loudly. Not explosively. Silently. Like ice cracking deep underwater. In that moment, I stopped thinking about whether he was dangerous. I already knew. The real question became, how do you dismantle someone who builds their power through fear and secrecy? And then 1 week later, everything escalated in a way I didn't expect. Lily showed up at my apartment unannounced. It was past midnight. When I opened the door, my heart dropped. She looked hollow. Her eyes were red. Her hands were shaking uncontrollably. He followed me tonight, she whispered. Cold fear shot through me. What? I told him I was studying at the library, but I left early to meet a friend. He showed up there. He said he just wanted to make sure I was safe. My stomach churned. That wasn't checking. That was stalking. He said next time he won't be so nice. The room felt suddenly too small. Too quiet. I closed the door behind her. And in that moment, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. We were past the point of waiting. Past the point of observation. Evan wasn't just tightening his grip. He was preparing to escalate further. And if we didn't act soon, he would break her completely. As Lily sat trembling on my couch, clutching a mug of tea she couldn't stop spilling. She looked at me with desperate eyes and asked, what if he ruins my life if I leave? I took a slow breath, then said quietly, he only has power because he thinks no one can prove what he's doing. She stared at me, confused, hope flickering faintly. And that's when I made the decision, the one that changed everything. I leaned forward and said, then we are going to prove it. What Lily didn't know yet was that I had already found something buried in Evan's past. Something illegal. Something he had worked very hard to hide. Something that could destroy him completely. And once I confirmed it, I knew exactly how the revenge would begin. The moment I told Lily, we're going to prove it, something fragile lit inside her eyes. Not confidence. Not yet. But the first tiny spark of relief. Like someone who had been underwater too long finally getting a breath. Still, she didn't smile. Because fear doesn't disappear just because someone promises to help you. It sits in your bones. It whispers worst-case scenarios. And Lily had lived inside those whispers for nearly a year. That night, after she finally fell asleep on my couch, curled into herself like she was trying to disappear, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, and I pulled up the file I had been building quietly for weeks. Everything about Evan. Every post. Every record. Every digital footprint. At first it had just been instinct. a gut feeling telling me he was hiding something. But now, I knew it wasn't just a feeling. It was fact. Because 3 nights earlier, I had found the piece that changed everything. It was buried deep in public court archives. A case from 4 years ago. Different city. Different jurisdiction. And his name wasn't even listed first. It appeared in a secondary report tied to another investigation. Most people would have missed it. But I read for a living. And when I saw the keyword unauthorized recording, my pulse spiked instantly. I clicked. And there it was. A summary report. Evan had once been investigated for secretly recording a former partner. Not just arguments. Private moments. Without consent. The case never went to trial. Because the girl dropped the charges. But the documentation was still there. Detailed. Damning. And chillingly familiar. Same pattern. Same methods. Same psychological manipulation. He hadn't changed. He had just become more careful. I remember sitting back in my chair, heart pounding, staring at the screen. Because that moment, everything became crystal clear. This wasn't teenage relationship drama. This wasn't a guy with control issues. This was a repeat offender. A predator who operated through humiliation and fear. And he relied on one thing above all else. Silence. Because silence protects people like him. But evidence destroys them. When Lily woke up the next morning, she looked exhausted. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I should go before he notices. I shook my head. No, not yet. She froze. Fear flickering instantly. What do you mean? I took a slow breath. Then turned my laptop toward her. Because I need you to see something first. I watched her face as she read. Confusion. Then disbelief. Then shock. Her hands began trembling again. He did this before. I nodded. Yes. Her lips parted slightly. And then came the realization that hit her hardest. Her voice cracked. So everything he told me about being hurt in the past, about how his ex betrayed him. Her words dissolved into silence. I finished the thought quietly. Was a lie he uses to gain sympathy. Tears welled in her eyes. Not loud crying. Just silent tears. The kind that come when someone finally sees the truth they've been avoiding. He made me feel like I was the problem, she whispered. My chest tightened. Because that's how people like him maintain control. She wiped her face. Then looked at me with a mixture of fear and determination. What do we do now? And that was the moment the plan truly began. I leaned forward. We don't confront him, I said firmly. Her brow furrowed. Why not? Because confrontation without proof gives him time to destroy evidence. She nodded slowly. I continued. We gather everything, quietly, carefully, completely. Her voice trembled. And then, I held her gaze. Then we end this on our terms. The first step was documentation. Not emotional stories. Not accusations. Hard evidence. Time-stamped. Verifiable. Undeniable. Over the next several weeks, we worked like two people preparing for a legal case. Because in many ways, that's exactly what it was. Lily began saving everything. Screenshots of his controlling messages. Recordings of his threats. Logs of the tracking app activity. Every time he demanded passwords. Every time he forced her to apologize. Every time he used humiliation as leverage. At first it terrified her. She felt like she was doing something wrong. Like she was betraying him. That's how deep his conditioning ran. But slowly, Something shifted. Each piece of evidence gave her a tiny piece of power back. I could see it in her posture, her voice, the way she started making eye contact again. Fear was still there, but it wasn't the only thing inside her anymore. Anger had begun to grow, and anger, when guided carefully, can be a powerful force for survival. Meanwhile, I continued digging, because I wanted more than proof of his abuse toward Lily. I wanted to dismantle the foundation he had built his image on, and that meant exposing the parts of his life he guarded most carefully. That's when I discovered something else, something he never expected anyone to find. Evan worked in IT support at a mid-sized company, a position that gave him access to internal systems, and buried inside a professional complaint archive was an anonymous report from an employee. It described someone using workplace access to monitor personal accounts. Not proven, not pursued, but suspicious, and the details matched his role perfectly. My pulse quickened, because this wasn't just personal abuse anymore. This suggested a pattern of ethical violations, possibly even criminal ones. I remember sitting at my desk late one night, staring at the screen, realizing something important. This wasn't just about saving Lily. This was about stopping him from ever doing this to anyone again. And that realization hardened my resolve completely. Because revenge alone can be emotional. But justice requires precision. The next phase of the plan was the most delicate. Timing. Because leaving an abuser is statistically the most dangerous moment for a victim. We had to ensure Lily would be safe, protected, and legally supported. Before he even realized he was losing control, we coordinated everything carefully. Legal consultation, digital backups stored securely, a safety plan for immediate separation, even a new phone prepared in advance. Every step felt tense. Every step felt like walking through a minefield. Because at any moment, he could sense something was wrong. And if he did, he would escalate fast. And then, one evening, Lily texted me something that made my heart slam into my ribs. 3 simple words. He knows something. I called immediately. She answered in a whisper. He's been watching me all day, she said. He asked why I seem calmer. He keeps checking my phone more often. Cold fear spread through me. Stay calm, I said quietly. But inside I knew. The window was closing. The final stage had to begin soon. Because predators don't tolerate losing control. And when they feel it slipping, they become unpredictable. That night, as I sat alone in my living room, reviewing every piece of evidence we had gathered, I realized something chilling. Evan thought he was the one controlling the narrative. He thought he was the one setting traps. But in reality, he had been walking straight into ours. For weeks, and he didn't even know it. Yet, because the final step of the plan was something he would never see coming. It would hit him publicly, legally, socially, all at once. And when it happened, he wouldn't just lose Lily. He would lose his reputation, his career, his carefully crafted image, everything he used to maintain power. But before we could execute it, something unexpected happened. Something that nearly destroyed the entire plan. Because 2 days before we were ready, Evan confronted Lily directly. And what he said to her changed the stakes completely. 2 days before we were ready to act, Evan cornered her. Not in public, not where anyone could see, but in the exact kind of private, controlled environment he always chose. Her car, parked in a dim corner of a grocery store lot after sunset. Lily told me later she knew something was wrong the moment he got inside. He didn't smile, didn't ask how her day was. He just locked the doors and sat there, watching her, silent. That silence, she said, was the worst part, because when he was quiet, it meant he was calculating. "Why have you been acting different?" he finally asked. His voice wasn't loud. It was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that feels like standing on thin ice. Lily tried to keep her voice steady. "I haven't." He tilted his head slightly, then pulled out his phone and played a recording. Her heart stopped when she heard it. It was from weeks earlier. A conversation between her and me. Not the full thing. Just a carefully edited portion. The part where she whispered, "I want out, but I'm scared." He paused the audio, then looked at her. "You lied to me." Her hands started shaking, but she didn't cry. Not this time. Because by then, she knew something he didn't. She wasn't alone anymore. "What did you tell her?" he asked quietly. Lily swallowed hard. "Nothing you don't already know." His jaw tightened, and for the first time, his mask slipped completely. His voice dropped into something cold. "Dangerous. You think she can protect you," he said. "She can't." He leaned closer. "So listen carefully." His words came slow, sharp. "If you try to leave me, I will ruin you." He tapped his phone. "I have everything, videos, messages, recordings. I can send them to your school, your family, everyone." Lily later told me that moment felt like her chest collapsing inward. Because that threat had controlled her for nearly a year. It was the chain around her throat. The reason she stayed. The reason she felt trapped. But this time, something inside her didn't break. It hardened. Because she knew something he didn't know. His threats were no longer powerful. They were evidence. She took a slow breath and said quietly, "I'm not scared of you anymore." He froze. Just for a second. But it was enough. Because Evan thrived on fear. And in that moment, he sensed it slipping away. His voice sharpened. "You should be." He grabbed her wrist. Not violently, but firmly enough to assert control. That familiar pressure. The same one he had used countless times. But Lily didn't look away. Didn't apologize. Didn't shrink. She simply said, "Do whatever you want," and opened the car door and walked away. That night she called me. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the adrenaline underneath it. "He knows I'm leaving," she said. I closed my eyes. The timeline had accelerated. "Are you safe right now?" I asked. "Yes." "Good," I said firmly. "Because now we finish this." The next 48 hours were the most intense of my life. Every step had to be perfect. Precise. Irreversible. Because once we pulled the trigger, there would be no going back. We coordinated with a lawyer, submitted documentation to law enforcement, prepared formal reports to his workplace compliance department, every piece of evidence carefully organized, time-stamped, cross-referenced, impossible to deny. And then, on a Monday morning at exactly 9:03 a.m., the plan went into motion. Evan was sitting at his desk when it happened. We know this because of what happened afterward. First came the email from his company's internal security team. Subject line: Urgent Compliance Investigation Notice. Then came the HR summons. Then the legal notification. Then the official complaint filed with supporting evidence. All within 1 hour. Simultaneously. Because predators rely on time. Time to deny. Time to manipulate. Time to destroy evidence. We gave him none. By noon, he was escorted out of the building. Not arrested. Not yet. But under formal investigation. His access revoked. His authority stripped. His image cracking in real time. But the real collapse came later that afternoon. Because at 3:17 p.m., Lily sent him one final message. Not emotional. Not angry. Just one sentence. I'm done and everyone knows the truth now. He read it instantly. But he didn't reply. Because at that exact same moment, his phone began exploding with notifications. Family members asking questions. Co-workers demanding explanations. Social circles pulling away. Because once documentation exists, manipulation loses its power. And the narrative shifts instantly. He tried to contact her dozens of times. Calls, messages, voicemails. At first angry, then defensive, then desperate. But she never responded. Because she didn't need to anymore. The silence he once used to control her had become her shield. Weeks later, the official outcomes became clear. His company terminated him for policy violations. The legal case moved forward based on unauthorized recordings and coercive behavior. Multiple former partners came forward once they realized they weren't alone. His reputation collapsed completely. Not through drama, not through revenge theatrics, but through truth. Documented, unavoidable, permanent. And Lily, the transformation in her was something I will never forget. It didn't happen overnight. Healing never does. But slowly, she started laughing again, standing straighter, speaking freely, sleeping peacefully. The constant tension that once lived in her body faded, piece by piece, until one day, months later, she said something that brought tears to my eyes. I finally feel like myself again. The last time I ever heard from Evan was a single message sent to me. No apology. No accountability. Just bitterness. You ruined my life. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I typed one response. Only 6 words. You destroyed it yourself, we just proved it. And then I blocked him. Forever. People often think revenge is loud, explosive, dramatic. But the most powerful kind isn't about rage. It's about precision. It's about truth. It's about taking back control from someone who built their power on fear. What we did wasn't just revenge. It was justice. And sometimes, justice doesn't come from fighting harder. It comes from refusing to stay silent. If this story resonated with you, if you believe that quiet strength can be more powerful than loud anger, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share where you're listening from. Because stories like this matter. They remind people who feel trapped that control can be broken, that truth can win, and that sometimes the strongest revenge is simply taking your power back.